I am. I did an entire talk just a moment ago and didn't turn on the camera. In life, it's basically all about things that seemingly go wrong, seemingly don't work out, and everything goes in a different direction than one thought it would go. The practice is to be neutral and to be calm and respectful of all things that happen without being carried away by it into an action that is even more disastrous. So I'm talking about my tooth. Everybody who sees me in this time sees this missing tooth, or does not see a tooth in my mouth where a tooth is usually present. It is very historic and karmic for me, this tooth. It's always been an issue from my early childhood till now. And I would say quite honestly and clearly that finally, with it missing, with this unusual mouth of teeth, one being missing, I have found myself to be very accepting of it, finally. But in the beginning, my teeth have always been a problem for me. I had a tooth that grew in strangely in the side of my mouth. I felt uncomfortable about that, so that in class I felt I couldn't answer questions because people would see this tooth that has grown in strangely in my mouth. And they'll see me talking and they'll see the tooth. My father, a doctor, gave us tetracycline when we were youngsters. Tetracycline was revealed to be a drug that stained the teeth brown or gray, as in my case. All of my sisters, my siblings, and myself, our teeth were gray or brownish gray for our childhood, and that was always difficult for me. It was difficult to have that color teeth when everybody else had white teeth, and it was difficult because I had these big two front teeth standing out in front of me, totally discolored and big in my face, so that everybody could see it. It made me very insecure. It made me insecure in all of my insecurities, and many of which I will talk about. So, one of the things that was happening was my mother had one of the most beautiful smiles. Her smile was, and it got her in trouble because it was so beautiful. She had big, glorious white teeth. And in the dark skin that she had, her teeth glimmered and glistened and shone out of her face in a way that was startling. She was so sure of that and so secure about that, and so she could smile in a glorious way. So when she played in the symphony smiling that way, at the end of pieces, she took and stole the show from everybody. Everybody looked at this dark-skinned being with these shiny white teeth over in the corner beside these drums, and they were completely riveted to her. I heard about this over and over. I saw this smile over and over. And in comparison with this smile, in the envy that I had for this smile and these glistening white teeth, I had grayish brown teeth with these spuck things and something sticking out of the corner of my mouth. It was difficult for me. When the film about me won an Academy Award, and we were invited to the ceremony to see who would win from the nomination. I'm not sure if I presented that correctly. When the film about me was nominated for an Academy Award, and we were invited to attend the ceremony to see who would win the award and to be in the audience to be present for that ceremony, I, in excitement and anticipation of this experience, remade my loincloth and the gold chains and all of the parts of it so that everything was new and glistening, like my mother's mouth and my mother's smile. I felt very, very shiny. When I came down to the final piece of my outfit, which was at that time a headband made of beads, red and black beads with a gold sun in the center. When I was finishing that headband, and when I finished it, what I do is I would tighten all the beads with a knot in the leather cord, and to get that knot as tight as I could, I put it in my mouth and I pulled as hard as I could, and my front tooth shattered and a piece of it flew out of my mouth. Horrified. I looked at it sitting there with the awareness that tomorrow I was going to the Academy Awards, to this ceremony for which I was just preparing with all these splendid glistening things, and my tooth was now a snaggle tooth split in half with a piece sitting on the ground in front of me. It was a difficult moment, and it was a difficult thing to take with me to the Academy Awards. Being that it was so new, being that I was unable to accustom myself to this missing tooth, being that missing this tooth now was difficult to say my name, Thoth. When that tooth was there and I first experienced it, I was unable to hold my tongue over my teeth in the correct way to make that sound. So I was unable to say my name. It was an irony that, and perhaps a karmic significance that was so overwhelming. So I went to this Academy Award feeling the insecurity of this snaggletooth now, and the film won, and I got to be on the stage, danced on the stage. I didn't smile. I kept my mouth closed for most of the time, and so that nobody would see the snaggletooth. And the film won an Academy Award at the same time as I was feeling the most insecure from my tooth being, I'll call it, destroyed. What was also an addition to this experience was that Jay Leno, of the Jay Leno Show, invited me to be on the show after the Academy Award. It was a generous opportunity. It was offered so that I would advertise myself to more people. It was a sweet invitation. It was difficult, though, because during that entire interview I felt the missing tooth, and I could feel myself trying to hide it by moving my lip, this right side of my lip, down over it so that I could hide it like this. I could feel it, not so fully as I'm showing, but I was doing that. I had trouble speaking also because I was unused to this missing part of my tooth. So I remember so clearly one of the questions Jay Leno asked of me, which was to help me and to show people where I might be so they could see me. He said, "So where do you play?" That was his question. And my answer, feeling my tooth so largely in my mouth and so uncomfortably in my mouth, I said, to be as short as possible, I play in a tunnel. And that was not really helpful. And then Jay Leno said, "What tunnel? The Lincoln Tunnel?" And of course that was funny. He was being funny, but at the same time it was extremely uncomfortable for me, because it was what just happened. I never really recovered from that. What I could have done at that moment was said, I play in the Angel Tunnel, the tunnel in Central Park near the Bethesda Angel. I do performances there from 3 to 5 or 3 to 6. But I've always been, and I have always had difficulty speaking about what I do to others. And in this case, it was impossible to speak to people, to speak to him, to speak to the audience, to speak to the world, though I had that opportunity. And so that always speaks to me in a way that says, you are who you are, and although you have had opportunities to be very well sought and very well seen in this world, for some reason that has always been deflected. And that has to be your truth. That has to be my truth, because that has happened so many times I cannot even count them anymore. And that's a thing that I have learned to be neutral about. I have learned to be humble. I have learned to be quiet in my life. I have learned to lose all of the things that I was given, because nothing can be held on to.